This is Henry Hill from the movie Goodfellas, and I'm on the show Without Your Head.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by Kevin Interdonato of Bad Frank. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, you sure did, man. How's it going, everyone? Thanks for having me, Neil.
I'm very good, and thanks for coming on. It's very cool to have you here. So
it's my pleasure, man. It's my pleasure, and kudos on getting the name right.
Cool. I'm half Italian, so maybe it has something to do with it. I don't know. That and I watched some YouTube videos to make sure. But how did you get involved in Bad Frank?
I got approached by Tony Germanario and Brandon Heitkamp, the other producer and actor. He also played the part of Travis in the film. Mm-hmm. I guess about maybe 8 months before the project started. Mm-hmm. And at the time they had a storyline. The script wasn't ready, but I worked with them in the past on a feature. I had a small part in it, and yeah, man, they pitched me on the spot, and I was in. They're great dudes. They're talented, and a role like this, you don't really want to pass up,
Yeah. Now, what was it about Frank that interested you right away, as in the character?
Neil, when I play these guys, I tend to get edgier roles, kind of complex, heavier characters, nothing really too light. I always find that there's always a reason. There's always a vulnerability to it, to the person. There's always someone, no matter how bad these people are, especially Bad Frank, there's always someone in their life that loves them. Mm-hmm. And, that kind of really interested me and sparked my interest about this character. You hear the storyline, you hear the plot, what it's about, but you don't know the reason why. And other than just the, I guess for surface value, what he does and his behavior, it's the reasoning behind it that interests me, and that's pretty much what drew me to it.
Mm-hmm. So,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, you talk about the reasoning behind it. Did you do any research about people with anger problems?
Oh yeah, extensively, man. I even spoke to a couple social workers and whatnot. It's your job as the actor to really dig in. Sometimes the script or the director don't really have. They have the outline of things, but it's not as in detail as an actor would approach a role. So yeah, I went pretty full force with it. For all, obvious reasons. I didn't want to do anything fake. Mm-hmm. And right down to his issues, what kind of medication he would be on, how much medication he needs to be on in order to have severe withdrawals if he were to stop suddenly, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I did my work on him, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that it's not like a big part of the movie, but it's there about the medication? I like that about it. It's a little bit of social commentary about something without hitting you over the head with it.
Right.
And I like that you play. You're pretty mellow, but you have to have a brewing anger about you when you're playing Frank. How is that to not go over the top with it until it's needed?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess it's just kind of having a full understanding of the story. When you play a lead role in something, you're literally telling the story. Mm-hmm. So you have to know the script, you have to know the book, you have to know everything from cover to cover, and just know where you are at certain times. So as far as the boiling and the brewing and everything, Frank, he's one of those guys that I think everyone knows at least one. Someone you grew up with that just had a bad bone, and someone that just acted out or was just such a fucking maniac for whatever reason. And that was this guy, Frank Pierce. I really had to dig in and find out why. And then you just pick your spots, The script was written really well by Tony, and I helped out a little bit. So did Russ Russo, another actor on the project. And it just kind of came together, man,
Mm-hmm. Is it hard to keep a character that likable? Because obviously he has to show a lot of violence and maybe qualities that aren't positive, but you have to be rooting for him, when you're watching the movie.
That's the thing, brother. You hit on the head. Like, for someone that bad, if there was no, well, take the scenes, for example, with the whole element with his father.
Mm-hmm.
If that didn't exist, he would just be a monster. He would just be an absolute monster. And, you know, that's what I was talking about earlier, what I'm referring to about having a vulnerability, or the side that people do care about the character or something. Because if you don't care for him, then he's just a monster. And that was really important to me, to make sure that those scenes were in the script, in his life. And I think the actor we got was Boom Boom Mancini, who played my dad. He was awesome, man. And we look a lot like each other too.
Yeah,
so
I had that in my notes. When I first saw him, I was like, hey, they could pick the good guy to look like his father. And then when I realized it was Boom Boom Mancini, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's cool. I known Ray for about a little almost 15 years, and I called him up immediately, and he was in. He was like, yeah, I'm down, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a great guy, pleasure to work with.
Yeah. I think it's interesting casting, too, because if you know anything about Boom Boom Mancini, it's like there's like another element of someone who made their living through violent acts doesn't make them a bad person, and also had a huge tragedy in their life. And so kind of, even if you don't know that, I think it adds like kind of a little bit of an atmosphere or something to the movie.
Yeah, it does. It does. You do your homework, man. You're on point. Yeah, it's true. You know, all these little. It's like layers, right, Neil? It's just like things that kind of color the story a little bit, and that's definitely one of them. We did implement some dialogue on Tom Sizemore's part when he was beating up the Travis character, talking about Frank's father, and then the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Mm-hmm. He wrote the story on police brutality, I think was the line too. So these little clues, these little seeds are planted all throughout the film. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right, man. I think it definitely did color the story more.
Yeah. I love the Sizemore character because I think a lot of his dialogue really helps sell how bad Frank can be without always showing it, because he's telling these stories and you can tell he's afraid of the character, and it's kind of a weird thing, but I kind of think it's kind of like Loomis in the Halloween movies, where he's talking about how evil Michael Myers is, and it sells it without even seeing it, if that makes sense.
Dude, you are on point. That was a lot of the stuff that I brought to the script, and that was actually one of the references I was thinking of in my head.
Really?
When I was writing it. So you're right there. The whole idea, with this character, what was interesting to me was Frank never said he was bad. Mm-hmm. Frank never said anything about himself at all. He never puffed up. He never tried to show anything. He just was really just trying to exist and live and be straight. And it's all the other characters that kind of bring stuff together, especially Sizemore's character, Mickey, who was fucking awesome, wasn't he? I mean, he was like going off book and then coming back to it. And there was a lot of dialogue for him in that scene, and he was just incredible.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much where it is. You hit the nail on the head. Everyone else was supposed to be reacting to Frank to show the audience who and how he really was.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to give anything away about the movie, but Sizemore's so good in it, and at the end of the movie, even though he's like a real villain and stuff, he shows a side of him where you start to feel bad for him, and I thought that was a great element of the movie.
Yeah, man, it was a risk, because if you think about it, it's really not. You don't know who the antagonist is. There is a switch. There's a big switch, and what he brought to the table. I remember when we wrapped up, Tom came up to me and he said, "Man, this is like." I think he said this is like the third or fourth best performance he's ever done. Or third, yeah. And it's true. We had magic on that set. When we wrapped up, everyone was like clapping for each other when everyone left for the day, and even the crew was awesome, and everyone just what it felt like, Neil? It felt like being on an all-star team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even like the PAs, man. The PAs were just like these rock-solid kids that didn't get paid, that just came, and the sound guy was like this fucking renegade, man, that made sure he got the sound no matter what, and the DPs and all the actors. I mean, you saw what the actors went through. There's a lot of injuries on this one, man, for sure. A lot. So everyone really put themselves out there. Mm-hmm. Everyone did.
that's interesting. You mentioned the crew too, because I would think sometimes you can give a great performance, or everyone can give a great performance, but it's also up to the rest of the crew and the editing, what happens with that performance. So if anything, isn't there, it could ruin a great performance.
Without a doubt, man. We made sure we got the right people involved in all positions. And, that's why, if someone says something to me about, the playing Frank or, the performance or anything, I mean, I am appreciative, but at the same time, I can't accept that without mentioning everyone else. It's all, it all comes together, Yeah.
Does that happen very often when you're making when you're part of a movie where you can feel that it's something special?
Nah, man, that's few and far between. You wish it does, but every now and then you just get a magic one, man. And you just get good people on board. Somehow or another, Neil, when we were crewing up and casting up, no one came to the set. No one was involved in the film that someone didn't know prior.
Right.
It was all friends of friends or direct friends of someone. So when everyone came in, there was no stranger. I may not have known, all the PAs, but Tony did. Or, I may not have known the DP, but Russ Russo, who played Nico, he knew that. So everyone knew someone coming into this thing.
Yeah. And when you say that, I assume you don't mean like, we're just going to have my cousin on set because he's a cool guy. But they knew him because they knew they were good at their job. Bingo,
yeah. I mean, some people probably got pissed that they weren't asked to come on board. But at the end of the day, it's about the movie, and it's just the right people for the job, and that's it. That's the bottom line. It always should be.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the Nico character. I think that's like the one character in the movie that's totally unlikable, which, it totally works because it's good to have that one character. But he was great as Nico.
Yeah, it's my boy Russ, man. He's a true chameleon actor, that guy. He's, from other stuff, a lot of people didn't recognize him in Bad Frank because of how many different characters and looks he has throughout his career and his movies. He's terrific. Mm-hmm. He's terrific.
You mentioned a couple times about like stuff you added to the script. So, like, how much of an input did you have on the script itself?
A lot. When the script wasn't finished, when we started getting going, so I just asked Tony if I could get involved a little bit, and it wasn't that I made changes per se, but I just added a lot of elements to it. Most of the character development for all the characters, including myself, things like that. That was pretty much most of what I brought to the table. Dialogue changes and whatnot. So I was pretty heavily involved in the script.
Is there any similarities between you and the Frank character?
Yeah, it was my wardrobe. Let me see. There's always a piece of someone. You know what I mean? You have to pull from something. You can't just, because then if you don't pull from something personal or from your own life, then you're just acting, and then that's the whole idea. You don't want to act. So I just tried to be as, I guess, honest as I possibly could within that character, man. Similarities? No, I mean, my certain mannerisms and things like that, obviously. But as far as the headspace I was in, no way, absolutely not. He was, Frank's a fucking psychopath, man.
Right. Is it ever hard to get into a role like that?
No, it's hard getting out of it. Getting into it's fun, man. You know what? I take that back. Not getting into the role, that's not what's hard. What's hard is life. Because, I mean, like right now, I'm sitting in my living room and, no one's home, I'm hanging out. My dog's hopefully not pooping in the other room. I can't see him. But, that's what makes it weird, because you have to get ready. You got to prepare. You got to kind of walk in those shoes a little bit. You can't just come to set and all of a sudden pop, you're the character. So the conflict is and it's not a difficult thing. It's just awkward. It's things that actors know and no one really else does. That, I may be walking in the street, walking a certain way or handling myself a certain way, or in a park or something like that, my headphones in, and there's, mad people around with their kids and their dogs. I'm just totally in a completely different world than what is right in front of me. And sometimes you just, you have to, well, anyway, that's the way I work, dude. Some people most people work different, but for me, if it's not real in real life, then it's not real in front of the camera. So I just tend to, work on it outwardly as much as possible, minus the crazy shit, obviously.
Right. You didn't go just beat someone up or.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That shit don't happen, no.
Yeah.
But you got to walk around with it, man. You got to hold it.
When you mentioned about like realism, and earlier you mentioned about like doing the research about like anger problems. I think as a viewer, even if you're not aware of any of that, the fact that you do that, I think it adds a realism to any film or story that you're telling.
Yeah, I think so, man. Neil, you picked up on a lot. This movie got reviewed a lot, and a lot of people have different takes on it. But I could tell right away that you're one of the few that picked up on a lot of elements in this thing. And that's the goal when you're involved in the movie, is not only an actor but in the production too. The whole aspect with his anger issues, on the surface, that's okay. He's an angry guy. He's crazy. But behind that, the guy had a severe mental illness. These are things that you need to be medicated for. Guys like that cannot exist in life. And that's pretty much why I started out Frank as kind of dull, kind of numb, which is why the first scene was what it was. He was just, he was having sex with his wife, could not enjoy it, faked it, went outside and just hit himself in the hand with the fucking hammer, because he's just numb to everything. When you're on that high of medication, you're like a zombie. So, when the certain story part of the story came, when right in the beginning, when he took a pill and he was out, and then he went for his other medication, it was out. I think that kind of set a tone. I don't know if you agree with this, but for that downward spiral to go, right, he runs out of medication right in the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So he really has nowhere to go with it. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And I think the movie showed that like bad decisions or anger and stuff, it doesn't just affect the person, but it totally affects everyone that he's involved with, his family, all his friends, his significant other's wife, everybody. Yeah, man. As those things do happen, there's trouble kids, trouble adults. It always affects the family and stuff. And obviously Frank was disowned from his mom, disowned from his dad, wanted nothing to do with him, and trying to reconnect. There's an obvious reasons why they don't talk to him. We don't need to show that shit. We didn't need to go flash back to, Frank doing some crazy stuff. I think, people are pretty smart. They pick up on things. And, I think it's
part of writing a script is thinking about that.
I think it's better when you don't show everything, because each person watching that could have their own idea of things he did and some people might think of something worse than someone else. So if you leave it up to someone's imagination, it's probably going to be more powerful than something you could show.
Yeah, I agree, man. Is that how you feel about it too? You think if we actually showed more, it would have kind of been, like taken away from the story a little bit?
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that about movies in general, not even just Bad Frank. Not always. I mean, you have to show some things, obviously, but that's why a lot of times something based off a book never lives up, because you can't live up to your own imagination.
Right. You said it, man.
Yeah. Like the end of It, I always think it would be better if they didn't even show what Pennywise was, because it can't live up to what your deepest fear could be, because everyone would have something different. Oh yeah, you talking about when he turns into the spider? Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it was in a weird way. It was kind of a letdown. I was more scared of the fucking clown. Yeah, me too. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, man. I hear what you're saying. And were you hands-on at all after the movie's made, like when it's being edited or anything? For Bad Frank, I was, yeah. I was heavily involved in post, in the editing, in the score, getting the right sounds down, comparison songs and stuff. I was pretty hands-on with that directly with the composer. There was music I was listening to get ready for Frank. Anytime I have a role,
that warrants, really stepping into it. Everything revolves around music for me because I think everyone just kind of has their own song, their own tune. And I don't know, for whatever reason, Deftones really sung to me a lot. I was listening to Deftones, even some Guar, man, from back in the day. I had some old Guar CDs and stuff. And when I was talking to the composer, there were certain elements of Deftones that I really wanted to play with and certain instruments. So Michael Long was the composer. He was terrific. And we just came up with some stuff, and he just banged it out of the water.
Huh. That's interesting, because I've had other actors on who will listen to music to get into a role, but actually kind of implementing that music itself into the movie, in theory, would get like people watching it in sort of the same mindset that you are as a character. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we pulled from it. There's just things, sounds, noises. If you listen to Bad Frank, I don't really think you'll pick up. I mean, you might pick up, hey, that sounds like Deftones, but they're all original pieces.
Yeah.
And there's other elements in there as well. But because the whole idea was to get in Frank's head. So, there was actually a Frank sound that the sound designer came up with, and it was almost like that high-pitched ringing noise and the low bass at the same time. So everything was really getting in Frank's head, and that was kind of the impetus for the audience to know something's brewing, rather than me having to show it. The score backed it up, and that's just like any film. There's all these elements: the score, the songs, the cuts, the coloring. It all really backs up your actors too.
Now, did you get to see the movie with an audience at any point in time?
Yeah, man, I've seen it so many times. I tend to not watch it anymore. We went to festivals and stuff because it just started getting a little old. But I mean, it's funny. But even when I do watch it, I still pick up on little stuff here and there. I mean, obviously, I always, wish I did certain things different and critique my own work to a fault. But we've seen it. We've seen it plenty of times. The original cut was about 12 minutes longer. And we had a screening in Hollywood and took some notes and chiseled down a little bit more.
Well, what's that experience like? Not even just watching yourself, but being with an audience watching your own movie.
It's pretty cool. The audience is what the I guess like the defining factor is, more so a regular audience than a film festival, because festivals, everyone's there competing, man. So everyone's there with their own movies. So they might like your film, but they won't clap. You know what I mean? So you're not getting like the true effect of it. But when you're with an audience and people don't know you or know that you're there, it was pretty interesting. And I think, I know that Frank hit on a lot of levels, and it did pretty well on the festival circuit.
Now, you mentioned, you knew Tony, the director, before. Will you guys work together in the future?
Yeah, man, sure. Tony's doing another movie, I think in 3 weeks, with Lynn Mancinelli, who played Crystal, Sizemore's daughter. She has a lead. It's kind of a rape revenge film. Lynn's insane, man. She's one of the best actresses I've ever worked with. Like, hands down. She's incredible. Really kept me on my toes. And she's got the lead in that one that's coming up. That's next for Tony. I'm not involved in that one. But down the line, yeah, man. He's fun. He's good to work with. Yeah,
I really liked your dialogue together with her. Because even though the movie is about violence and stuff, I really think a lot of the quiet scenes are, what interests me, what gets me into the movie. And you're playing off each other. There was definitely chemistry there, and that's kind of like when you talk about the double turn. It's kind of, I don't give away the movie, but it's kind of like when Frank goes, I think, beyond being like the likable anti-hero of the movie, and maybe there's more villain there than, the anti-hero.
Yeah, I hear you there. Some people have their own theories about the film, and especially, and I won't give anything away, but those scenes with Crystal and what happens between those two characters, some people think it was just in the moment. Some people think it was planned. I obviously I have my own my own interpretation of it because I did it, but she's a hell of an actress, man. Sometimes you get a great script and that's one thing, but unless you have a great actor really living out those lines, it just takes it to a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm. Do you like that about the different, even if they didn't like the movie or something, that people have different theories on why your character did just like that scene in particular, instead of everyone feeling exactly the same way about everyone's motives?
Yeah, I do. It's interesting to see people's take on it. Sometimes people are really off point, and it's like, oh man, you just didn't get the film, you know.
Right.
And one reviewer put something out about, an ex-Marine, you know, that's all fucked up and this and that. I'm like, what are you talking about? It has nothing to do with him being in the Marines, man. You know. So some people miss the mark, but it's fine. I mean, that's the nature of the beast, man. The audience is I guess it's like the final say, you know. So that's really all it's about at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've been asked this before. Maybe you don't want to talk about it, but it's my favorite show of all time. What was it like being on The Sopranos?
It was cool, man. That was my first kind of big studio set, my first big gig. Up till then, I was just doing like independent films. I'm like student films and shit. I was just starting out, so it was cool. I was there for a few days. The food on set was insane. It was like being by my grandma's house. I mean, I must have put on 10 pounds in like 3 days of filming. It was just awesome. It was really a good experience. Everyone was like a real close-knit family, crew too.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I had that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And you said that was like your was that your first big role, you said, or your first acting role?
That was my first big one. You know, like size of the set, money, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Not money that I got, just, you know, the big,
right. Yeah.
The big shebang.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool, man. I was supposed to go back for the next season. I actually got cast as a recurring after that, and I was in the military at the time, and I had to go overseas, so that kind of got.
Oh, I see. Those
plans got thrown out the window. That got cut short. So you know, at least I got on the show. That was what was important.
Yeah. How was that like after it airs? I would assume, you know, you especially like friends and stuff who knew you and would see you in Sopranos, and like, how did that change your life at all?
It didn't change nothing, man. My friends are all cool, down to earth people, you know, and I mean, we're all living me and my buddies were living in a house down on the beach in Belmar, New Jersey at the time, and I just forgot it was going to be on. You know, everybody at that time watched Sopranos on Sunday nights, right? I think that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were just watching, and I'm watching. I'm like, oh shit, I think I'm on this episode. And then sure enough, you know, I was just running down the street, and it was fun. It was cool.
Yeah,
it was cool, man.
Mm-hmm. And Bad Frank's on video on demand right now. And what do you think of that in general, video on demand? How important is that to independent film?
Very. I think I think we're in an amazing place right now with VOD. It actually gives independent film a chance to coexist with studio films. I mean, you can go on iTunes, Amazon right now, and you know, Bad Frank can be, obviously depending on genre, Bad Frank can be right next to Guardians of the Galaxy. It doesn't matter. They just, you know, whatever's up there is up there. So I think it's a wonderful time for independent filmmakers and artists to be in this business. You know, the money does not equate to studio money. That's a whole different animal. But at least, you know, you have the opportunity to make some good some film and get it out there so the public can see. And I think that's important, man. I think the term making it in Hollywood is it's not as clearly defined as it used to be, because you can be successful and have a living with independent film. You know, I know this dude, he's a friend of mine, an actor, I'm not going to say names, but he's been in a lot of shit, man. A lot. You know, he works, God, at least 5 times a year, maybe like 2 movies, you know, a nice big guest star, a big co-star, maybe a commercial. If you work more than 2-3 times a year, you're considered a working actor. And even at that level, got people that work that much. I mean, you know, just talk brass tacks with Neil. He's broke. I mean, he's broke. It's hard to hold a job when you're an actor, so you have to keep, hustling and bustling to get that cash or make ends meet some other ways,
Mm-hmm.
But unless you are known, like obviously you walk down the street and people are like, hey, I know that guy, or they know their name,
Mm-hmm.
or unless you're on a TV series,
Mm-hmm.
money's tight. It's not a lucrative business. There's only like 0.002% that are really lavishly living as actors.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough lifestyle, but to be an independent artist, it's okay because at least, what's important is the work and you're getting it out there. If you have to have a side job, so what? Who gives a shit? You got to pay bills. Everyone does. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of money that I know in this industry, some well-known actors that just have side jobs for the sake of it too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that, not to be long-winded here, and I'm coming full circle, but I don't know if that term making it in Hollywood really means what it used to mean.
Mm-hmm.
It used to mean you're a star, which is not so important for everybody. What's important to most of the people that I know is the work. And you just have to cross your fingers and hope that movies get out there. And luckily for us, something like that, Frank got on iTunes, iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, all the cable outlets. It's going on Redbox next week. So what's today, the 17th?
Yeah.
It's on Redbox tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah. So it's like something. Does that make sense, man? It's like to me, it's just changing. I think VOD is a great thing. Obviously, less people are going to the movies nowadays. People got the 50, 60 inch in their house, so why bother?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a wonderful time.
Mm-hmm. And we are technically a horror movie show, so I do have to ask you, what are your favorite horror movies?
Well, I've always been a Mike Myers fan since I was a kid. That's never really left me. Those Halloween movies, they just do it for me.
Uh-huh.
The movie called The Strangers always stood out to me as one of my favorites. I thought that was just brilliant movie making, not having to rely on anything, and just the suspense and tension it built was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw an interesting one not too long ago, man. It's called In Fear. Did you hear about that one?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, it's worth checking out, dude. It's real low budget. I think there's like 3 actors in the whole movie, 2 really in the entire movie. 1 or 2 other ones dip in, and it's just they did a great job building tension and suspense and fear without doing much. A lot of like just a really intricate storytelling, camera work, editing. They did a great job. It's called In Fear, and it's about this couple that's just driving, trying to get to a hotel. That's all I'm going to say. It's worth watching, man.
Yeah, I just wrote it down. I'll check that out.
All right, cool.
And you said you like Michael Myers and Halloween. What did you think of the Rob Zombie Halloween?
I liked it. I'm not much for. I'm a horror fan myself, but I don't really pick apart movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't really sit there and knock films. I'm a Rob Zombie fan, man. I think he's a great storyteller. I'd give my arm to work with that guy because he defines horror, but at the same time, he's a filmmaker. Yeah, I think you can agree as well as I. There's so many horror movies that are made each year that they just fucking suck because filmmakers know that, if you make a horror, it sells. So people just crank out horror films, and they're stupid. And I think that's kind of like taking advantage of the fans a little bit. Mm-hmm. Myself included, because when I watch a horror film, I kind of hope and expect it to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So, filmmakers just pump these horror films out, and they're not really horror filmmakers. They're just, guys with a camera that see dollar signs, and they know if they make a movie for $50,000, they'll sell it for $120, and that's how they go in approaching it. Mm-hmm. Rob Zombie to me is a true filmmaker, horror or not. So I really like his work, and I like his Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And how can people follow you online?
People can hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. On Instagram, I'm at the Kevin Intro. Twitter, it's Kevin Intro, and Facebook's just my name. If anybody can spell it, go for it.
Very cool. Well, they could copy and paste it off the website. But
Yeah, I'm open, man, and I use my personal page too. I don't give a shit. The whole thing of fans kind of freaks me out sometimes. So if somebody wants to hit me up, go right ahead.
cool.
I'm around.
And check out Bad Frank. I know it's not really a horror movie, but I really enjoyed it, and I hope people check it out and dig it.
I'm glad you liked it, man. It does sing. It sings to a lot of horror fans more than anyone else, oddly enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to do with. I think a lot of it has to do with what happens too. This man, what he is and what he turns into and what he becomes. It sings to horror fans more than anyone, and it's really a thriller. But I really hope that people enjoy it and they take the time to see it. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was awesome talking to you.
Pleasure's mine, dude. Good luck to you with everything, Neil, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
This is Danny Trejo, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. Keep listening, or I'll take your head.